Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Chasing the Whimsy. I'm your host, Ben, and we have today with co-host,
Megan.
yes, Megan, you officially,
I reached co-host status.
I think so. I think we have to,
I'll call myself the interim co-host. Liam is on an indefinite hiatus due to a busy schedule, I guess.
part of it is we're prepping for it. He'll come on eventually, and we will chat with him more. I know he'll want to talk, maybe. He doesn't really talk about it as much, but Liam had a tournament this weekend, in which was the qualifier for nationals.
Right.
So if you did well with this tournament, then he gets placed like a bracket ahead going into nationals. I guess if he did do well, there were still more tournaments, or if he went to nationals, he'd be further back on the brackets. But he's ahead a little bit if he would have won. So I texted him on Saturday and was like, "Hey, good luck." I wasn't able to go out and see him, and then obviously no answer. And then when was it? A couple hours later, I'm like, "Hey, how did you do?" And he's like, "I won it." I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" And he's like, he tore it up. He dominated.
I mean, obviously it's Liam.
Right? So he, so mom gave me the 3 pages worth of paperwork that they have. Cost what, there's a whole like training camp. So he's going to be there for like 9 days. He's going to go.
Yes, I remember talking
Right.
about that.
So I guess while he's up there, there's going to be like a couple day training camp and then like a whole national tournament. So in theory, he's going to be wrestling more. He's going to be gone for a little bit, doing a couple more tournaments. He's gone this weekend for his mom's birthday. So I was like, "Hey, 102, called you co-host last year or in the aughts." So I was like, "We need like no, like it was all fun and games when I called you co-host, like,
Yeah.
right? Now you're getting called up to the big leagues, right?
Terrifying. Obviously terrifying.
Like it's all fun. It's like I'll be co-host when we're at cons and like you'll jump on every once. You're no longer supposed to,
It's a travel co-host.
right? So if we do an awards ceremony, right, like we want to do for year 2, you in theory qualify for like host. Like
See, you're honestly trying to nerf me because I was the best guest star. You're like, oh, please take her out because she's honestly gonna beat all the other guest stars. We have like Ming Chen and
you
Johnson on here. Megan is the best one.
you and Liam are like the funniest people I've ever heard of, man.
Man, you need to go out more.
You guys are so funny. How do we get this? Like, it says that we're recording, and it does say we're recording, but I don't like that this screen is still on here.
Goal difficulty.
No, because I called it out the other day. Hold on, let's watch. Let me see if the screen goes blue. It says it's actually recording, but like, is it just,
Oh, are we having another lost episode right now?
dude? I would lose my mind if that happened. I don't think we're. I think I just don't want this to go away. How do I make this screen go away? So yes, you're being called into the big leagues, and so yes, you're no longer special guest. You've always been in there when I needed you, but in theory,
I'm a great villain.
yeah. But I think Liam would be happy knowing that his seat is warm and that while he's preparing for, dominating, that the podcast continues to dominate. And to do so, you need to co host.
No more Ben in the room talking to himself.
Hopefully not. No. Some old man episodes. Those were fun though. I went back to listen to a couple of them.
In preparation for episode 100, you're like, let's see if the sad dad is for real. And then you went, oh no.
It is for real.
Oh, it is real.
So this is your first episode in the hundreds. What were some of your highlights in 1 through 99? What are some of the things that you liked?
Well, we were actually, remember talking about this when my dad was here. And obviously, I'm very self-centered, so my favorite ones are ones that I was...
Right?
But no, because like a lot of them were like, Tuscon. I'm going to say it correctly. Not get us kicked out. And can we say the name of our town Comic-Con now, since we're going to...
I'm still calling it just Fan Fusion.
Fan Fusion, yeah.
Like maybe it's like a con that goes city to city and it happens to be in our town.
Yeah. Fan Fusion. I liked the Chronicon cast because they're... Well, and honestly, like, I don't know if those count because they were like lives instead of like episodes, really. But just the chaos of the Chronicon lives was insane. And Kelly was always calling me over and she's like, of course.
My favorite one still is Brian O'Halloran.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to Brian O'Halloran. He is on The Floor, hosted by Rob Lowe. 4 weeks in, he is still playing.
No way.
Yeah, so if you own the most squares at the end of the episode, you get 20,000 in cash. 3 episodes in a row, he's won it.
Damn.
So he got a little emotional. It was really cool to see him, but he's playing like a trooper. He's representing View Askew. So yeah, shout out to Brian O'Halloran.
That's amazing. It's funny because you watch shows like that and you go, I think I'd do pretty well.
Right.
And then you're like, if I was there, I'd get it. Absolutely. They wouldn't even let me in the parking lot.
Have you seen the show?
Yes.
My luck, it would be like, I'd pick my category, and then they would be like, all right, Ben, we're going to show you pictures of the most obscure stuff. Like, someone would be like, I want to go Kevin Smith movies. And they're going to be like, all right, you got to name the background actor in all these movies. I'm going to be like, nope.
Is this Kevin's left knee?
Yeah.
Clerks or Clerks 2?
So, yeah, the cons were always fun. I'm super excited for all of our con stuff coming up.
I'm so excited. Obviously, Tuscon's like my number one con.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something I love about it. It's a little more intimate than a bigger con, but then obviously I've been to Fan Fusion for a couple of years, so I also really love that one as well. But I've never presented at a con before.
It seems very indie. If you were at the first Comic-Con years ago, or even some of the cons back in like the 70s and 80s, when they held them at like churches and stuff, reminds me of that. Like, we're in on something before they blow up.
Well, and it's like a couple people just talking about things they're passionate about. And it kind of goes back to like the roots of everything, because I do love Fan Fusion, but it's a lot more commercial than any other con that's like smaller, like Tuscon, because that's about talking about video games, movies, science fiction, fantasy, but you're going back to the roots, and people are just having like nerdy discussions about it. And it's so wonderful to hear like academic discussions about things in smaller groups of people, and you'll go to one panel and you'll see the same people in another panel, and you'll continue like your debates with them and everything like that. And you don't really get that at Fan Fusion because it's so diverse and it's so huge. You can go to a panel here and you'll never see anybody from that same panel the entire time you're there.
Right. I think when I talked to AJ, they're expecting 68,000 people to show up this year for Fan Fusion.
I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised.
It's like about 12% higher than it was last year, which is amazing.
Yeah, I like that it gets bigger every year. And honestly, the amount of like talent that it attracts
Mhm.
because it's so big
Right.
is a feature of it, right? Like, so you're not going to get that at TutsCon. You're not going to get like huge actors there and stuff like
Right.
that. So both of them have like benefit. TutsCon's just,
I don't know if you're fully aware. Did you see some of the names of people going to FanFusion?
yeah, I looked at them about a month ago, I think, when they came out, and you said that maybe Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith is going to be there,
Uh,
and Jay Muse.
and you guys are now acquainted with each other since you're like neighbors.
I think he's only going to be there Saturday, but Ming Chen said he's still trying to get it worked out so that he comes down also. So it would be kind of nice to see like more views skew there. When I saw the announcement, it was probably 6 hours since when I saw the announcement. So I instantly reposted the picture of it, tagged Kevin and Muse, and Ming was like, "Hey, we're going to be there too. Come sit in on the panel." So part of the idea is while you're here is we're going to get to know you a little bit more. We're going to go a little deep into who.
I feel like I already had an episode dedicated to me, and
it was dedicated to you, but it was like some.
Oh no,
because I was thinking about it. Like I keep thinking of things like, did I know that Liam and I have said on the podcast, but then there's no answer for you that I know of. So we're gonna find out.
oh no.
Okay. So, but yeah, so
Get kicked off the podcast for this episode.
So if Liam continues, hi Sophie, want to come say hi?
Good night, bud. I love you.
Love you. You want to say goodnight to the podcast? Not right now. Like she's like, I'll come back out later. But now that he's, it was funny because he said mentally he's ready for the tournament. Physically, he was like 50-50. But I haven't talked to him much because it's literally been a day and a half. But when we get us back on, we're going to dive into it and see what he's doing to prepare. Because this would be like this is like his Super Bowl. Like this is like this is like my fan fusion. This is his fan fusion.
Right.
Right. So like we started the podcast together and he found other passions and we totally support that. So we're like, boom, he's off doing amazing things. So we're going to continue doing some things here. So I would assume that he might, I don't know. Again, I haven't talked to him, but just in case, get you out of here. Find out what's going on. Kevin Smith comes to our panel in the back.
Okay.
Do you acknowledge him?
How do I acknowledge him? Do I just like stop talking mid-sentence and go,
look at me, look at it.
No, I wouldn't acknowledge him because you know what? Honestly, fuck Kevin Smith. This is my panel.
I'm bringing him up.
No, I would no. Honestly, it would be so awesome if Kevin Smith came to our panel, but it'd be awesome if like any number of people came to our panel. And I'm more excited to hear what like normal people have to say about interacting with podcasting than like one of the titans in the business, because he's in it now. Like his whole family is in like I'm famous and like I have a podcast, but also I'm like, you know, directing movies and writing movies and doing all this crazy stuff. Like I'm looking for the relatable people, like people who are looking to get into podcasting or wanting to talk about their passions or wanting to talk about reconnecting with their families or looking into their histories or any of the things that we talk about on our podcast. And then,
well, he'll never hear this episode. I totally agree with you 100%.
You're not going to clip fuck Kevin Smith on the shorts or
maybe he might be like, whoa, what's this? Because I agree with you on that aspect. Like I like the intimacy and the just keeping everything with the audience and stuff, right? But then there's also the part of me that says, if I can piggyback off of fucking Kevin Smith for a minute, like if he came up and just sat down, like, don't talk, just hang out for a second, does it add any like clout to us to be like, these guys actually know what they're talking about? They know Kevin Smith, I guess. Let's start fucking recording with Whimsy Studios. Like, could it piggyback onto that? Because we're trying to write, I mean, Jen's coattails as much as we can.
I mean, yeah, but I think it's cooler if it's like, it's Kevin Smith back and you just kind of like make brief eye contact and go, you know what? I see that you're there.
A little tip of the hat to be, and then like,
see you're there. Shut up and go away.
Yeah, I like the idea. I can see it from all sides. I do, but I like the idea of being like, and it's weird. We're gonna come up with. We'll have this conversation later. An episode of why you should never meet your heroes.
Yeah, I mean, definitely valid.
Because I have some mixed feelings with. I 100% love Tesdy, like the Tom Steve Day boys. Wholly 100% love those guys, but like this idea that I keep trying to like insert myself into their universe, it's never going to happen. And I don't feel like, I'm trying to think, it's like, I'm like, I'm a big fan. You should recognize that, but they don't. And I'm like, I can't hold that against them.
Clearly, yeah, you can't.
Right. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they have a lot of big fans, right?
Oh my God. They got like huge fan. So they had a nice lead in because they were the #2 podcast on the Smodco podcast network, right behind Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier. So they were on Kevin Smith's network for 10 years. And then at some point they had to separate themselves. I'm thinking when they went to Patreon, they're still friends with Kevin. They obviously did the comic book show together with them, but they still kept most of those fans. So I think they're doing fantastic right now. I think their Patreon numbers,
I'm sure they're insane. Because when you have, the thing is like, obviously there's, probably richer people out there, but when you have like a small dedicated fan group, that's often like all you need is the people who are like diehards for you.
It goes back to something I heard years ago. All you need to be semi-successful in podcasting is you need like 1,000 people to follow and subscribe consistently. Even at like $5 times 1,000 people, like I could quit jobs and do that full time. We're not even close to that yet, but I think the Kevin Smith, the Tesdy boys, I think they're like, I wouldn't be surprised if they're like 15K in like Patreon subscribers at like $5, at minimum $5 tiers. But they have all that cool merch and stuff. So like, oh, I mean, I don't know. Like you get like we have to get way into like the logistics of it. Patreon takes 10% of that off the top, but they hired like 2 camera guys, like a producer. So all this extra content that they're doing, they're taking all that money and actually spending it on better production and videos and stuff that they do.
Yeah, they're investing into their product.
But yeah, it's like the idea that they're clearing 100,000 a month. But I'm like, it's not really that because you're paying 4 or 5, like they're basically running a business off of that.
Yeah, of course. Like it's not like if your grocery store makes $30,000 in a day, you didn't make $30,000. Right. You have all the stuff that goes into it, the bills and everything, right? Paying all your employees.
Right, you got to pay employees, and you got to pay for all that merch. I mean, I'm trying to do merch, and I know that they get discounts for the bulker, like when you buy in bulk. So it's interesting because a lot of people are like, they're famous and they make so much money. I'm like, no, they really don't. Like they're still like, it's nice to be able to create something that you can do for a living. Like Brian Johnson, never really good at working like a regular job, but now he does all the Patreon stuff, and now he is actually getting like a reasonable like wage for it, which is kind of interesting. And I would love to get there some point.
Why? You're great at working regular jobs.
I hate working regular jobs. It's going to lead me into my first question that we don't know anything about you. What was your first job?
I think if you want to quantify like what you get paid for, it technically was getting paid to work at my stepfather's business, like painting and carrying stuff, a lot of carrying stuff. So like we would say you go to an race, probably like when I started working, like 15 or something like that. Like you go into an office, right? And there's like those like half walls or whatever.
Yeah.
He would like cut them up into sections, and I'd be the one tasked with like carrying it downstairs. And it's like a lot of manual labor. And then obviously painting. So we painted a lot of office buildings and like rooftops with like a protective layer and stuff like that. But it's not exciting.
Is that all in New Jersey?
No, all that would be in Arizona. Because we moved to Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I just heard like fucking retarring rooftops. I'm like, you don't want to do that.
No, it's like a white tar. So it's like reflects the heat back.
Okay.
But terrible job for me. I'm terrified of heights. So
Really?
yeah, no, he's
okay. It makes like I could piece conversations we've had that you don't like heights, but the fact like I never like put it together like.
Oh, the weird thing is that I don't like heights, but I'm the first one to like offer to go somewhere high. Like we went on a zip line, me and Sophie, like a real one, and you're like strapped in. They take you up to like on this giant like pulley system,
Right.
And the whole time in line, I was like,
"This sucks."
No, I was like, you know what? I know Kelly wouldn't blame me if I just like walked out of line and I was like, forget the $15 I paid. I'm out of here. But then Sophie's just like, she didn't care. She was not nervous at all. She was not scared. And I was like,
I love that she's fearless, man.
I gotta not be scared, because if I show her that, like, let's get out of here, she's gonna get a complex of being afraid of things.
Right. Because fearless, but if you're like, I don't like carrots, she's like, I don't like carrots either. And you're like, quit mimicking. You don't even know.
You don't even know.
So
we'd always do the if you haven't tried it, you can't say you don't like it.
So no, I totally get that, where you're like, I gotta be tough for the little one.
Yeah, so anything, I'm just like, I'm not scared. I'm afraid of anything. I'm like, oh my God, please let the ride shut down. Please let them be like, oh, sorry, we can only do like 100 rides a day. This was 100. Sorry, buddy. And then we got on and we had fun, obviously.
So what does a 15-year-old do with all this money that you're making? Like, what does a 15-year-old Megan do with a little extra coin in her pocket?
It really wasn't all that much money, and because we weren't working consistently, but I don't know, like buy pizza and stuff. I mean, we didn't really have any money from like, my mom didn't do chores.
Right.
Like we did chores, but you didn't get money for chores. You didn't get money for grades, which I thought was crazy, because like all my friends would be like, oh yeah, it's like $10 per A, $5 per B. And I'm like, what?
Because it was all a scam, because like my mom used to do the same thing, thinking that it might do better in school, but she knew she wasn't going to pay more than like $6 to me. She's like 1A PE done. Here's your $2. Get out of my face.
No, my mom was like, you're gonna get an A or else. Obviously, she's not gonna pay us for it. Yeah, mostly that, because we often would like go to like the mall with friends.
You a mall rat?
A little bit, if we could, because we'd have to get our friend's mom to drive us, because my mom's always at work. But we would go there and we had no money. So we would just walk around and people would be like, oh my God, you should get that chop. It's so cute. And we're like, I don't even like it. I don't even think it's in my size. So, and then we'd go like Panda Express and be like, oh, 6 coins in our hand. Like, we just want a soda split, honestly, me and Kelly.
Well, we had a big lunch, big breakfast.
Yeah, we had a huge breakfast, so we're not even hungry.
Mom gets mad if I don't eat dinner.
Yeah. But yeah, and then we started working at McDonald's, I think, right after we graduated.
Did you work at all during high school?
Just with Chris.
Okay.
So my stepdad. And only if he had stuff that was like us friendly, because like he's a handyman, so he doesn't really need help.
Right.
And then also he can't send us out to do our own thing because we're 15. But then after high school, we just started working at McDonald's pretty religiously. So
And the both of you guys work together?
no, so well, yes, eventually. But she started out at a different store, interviewed at the same store, and then they were like, "Actually, we need somebody over at Southern in San Jose or whatever."
Yeah.
And so she went over there to work there, and then I stayed at the store where I interviewed at, which was in Scottsdale. We worked there like every summer, I think, and then sometimes on spring break. Just try to make money because when you go to college, you have no money.
How do you feel about working fast food, especially like as a teen or right out of high school?
I will tell you that when I first started, well, I think most of the time I worked at McDonald's, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. We got to hang out. It was fast paced. I don't like being bored and I don't like sitting around. So the fact that I could always be doing something really appealed to me.
Right.
And I don't know, I was like a shy kid, so I think customers could like catch on to that.
Your old guys in the morning?
They're just like, yeah, let's not be rude to this one. She seems like she might cry. I'm mean to her.
Because it's always, I think generationally, there's always because like I enjoyed fast food and I still 100% support everybody should have some job in food.
You gotta learn what it's like on the other side, because I've seen a lot of people who clearly never worked
Right.
in retail or in food, and they're so rude about the weirdest things. And I'm like, if you understood how it really works, you wouldn't act
Right.
like this.
So like it's so because it's like Liam, like some of the Z's I talked to, they're like no fast food, but I'm like, well, why not? And it's kind of like it's always for whatever reason it felt like fast food was like a shitty job, and I'm like,
It's the rite of passage.
It's so
to work a shitty job. That's you got to start out somewhere that kind of sucks, and guess what? You don't have to give a crap. When I got to the end of my fast food career, I was getting older. I'm getting out of college now. I started not giving a crap, and it was amazing because I was like, go ahead and fire me. There's a Burger King across the street, and I'm sure they're hiring.
Right.
Like, you can never feel that way again in the workplace when you get to a serious job. Yeah. All of a sudden, the stakes are real, but at fast food, do whatever you want. You're free, man.
Because I got a job working at a Carl's Jr. when I was 16, and I enjoyed it. I loved it. It was so much fun. Working behind the scenes, right? I never mess with anybody's food because I'm like, if I mess with anybody's food, that means somebody could be messing with my food. So like that was always sacred. Don't mess with the food.
Honor system.
Mess with everything else. Like,
yeah.
Like we used to get on the roof and like do stuff, and then we take all the kids' meal toys and we take all the good ones.
We used to steal the good ones. We'd be like, there's only one of this Charizard.
Right?
Right in the pocket.
Then we do like you do Sprite, and then the ice, the shake machine. I'm like, well, they have a better flavor, so I think the strawberry flavor off of that. And oh yeah,
we used to make our own McFlurries. I'd like put apple pie McFlurries and stuff like that.
What position did you work in fast food?
Cashier.
Okay. Did you do any cooking?
Never.
No. Would you have?
Okay, so not at McDonald's, I guess. When I went to work at Dunkin' Donuts later, way later, I did do finishing, baking and finishing. So you bake,
and then you
baked products like so bagels and stuff like that, croissants, and then you frost everything, the donuts, and you put like the doodads on them there and stuff. But that was way, way different because when you're the baker finisher at Dunkin' Donuts, or at least at the one that I worked at, or the couple that I worked at, you come in and like kind of like in the middle of the night, and then you like the stuff that is pre-made is already in the lobby, and you wheel it in, and then the stuff that you are actually going to make, like bagels and croissants, you make and you put in to bake, and you're by yourself. Like I had a speaker, I was with my favorite tunes, and the worst part of my day was when everybody else showed up.
Right. You're like, when the sun comes up and you're like, I've already been here for 4 hours.
Yeah, and then the worst part was, as you know, getting home and it's bright outside and you gotta go to bed.
Messes with your sleep schedule like crazy.
It kills you because you're like, your whole body is so tired.
Yes.
But it doesn't want to go to sleep.
Right, because it's like, hey, sun's been up for hours.
Literally, it's morning. Get up.
I used to work, I did a little bit of everything. I started off in the back, burgers, fries, then I moved to drive-through, then cashier and stuff. But it was, I don't know what everybody's
experience. Oh wait, you guys didn't have your cashiers doing your fries? Because we did the fries.
No. There was definitely a hierarchy.
Oh no, we did fries and hash brown.
Okay.
At McDonald's. So the cashiers did that. No cook person did that.
I never did breakfast. That one always scared me because they did the fresh eggs.
The best time of the day.
100%. But for food-wise, it completely jacks up your, like, because, so dinner was on the one side. So it was a charbroiler. So you got to put all the meat on. It comes through. And then you have all your little buckets. So and then you got your knife and you're putting all your things on it. But breakfast is on the other side where the grill was. And I was like, oh, I just never played with the grill. Because 16-ish, I didn't know, like, it just seemed more complicated to, like, pour out the egg beater and then try to make a burrito and try to roll that thing. I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, I didn't really see it from the cook side, I guess. But I always liked working really early in the morning when I was at McDonald's because that's when all the old people are there. And contrary to popular belief, old people are the best customers and they're the best, and you just need to understand where they're coming from.
Yes.
Because, like, think about it. You're old, right? You have limited time on Earth.
Right.
So I had one customer who would always cut the line, put 3/4 in front of me and go, senior coffee, while somebody else is taking their order.
Right.
And at first I was like, sir, you need to get to the back of the line. I mean, there's like 4 people here. And he would just throw a fit. At the end of the day, at the end of my like life there, he would roll those 3/4 up and I'd hand him the cup without him saying anything. While I was still taking that person's order, I would just hand him the cup.
Right.
And then he would walk away happy.
Like, looking back, I would almost prefer to do, because it's not that much, I'd rather just pay the $5 every like Sunday, and or Monday, all the guys are coming in anyway. You're like, they all sit in the same seats. Take the coffee over there, leave some cups, and be like, you don't even have to come see me anymore.
Yep.
Just like, you guys do your thing. Like, whatever problems that you could cause for the new person, you don't need it. Here you go. I give you the respect of you don't have to sit in line anymore. I like food though. Did you ever have other friends that worked in fast food, and did you ever trade food?
No, I didn't trade food because my only friend in fast food was Kelly, and she also worked at McDonald's.
I had a guy who worked at Subway, which was like a block away. So I was on one side of the corner. I was on the corner, and then he was across the big parking lot on the other side. So I would take all my food, go over there, and then he'd give me some food over there.
That'd be nice to get a little break because, you know, eventually you do get tired of eating McDonald's. We did have trades inside. The cooks and stuff like that, for whatever reason, they didn't like drinking like the water from the fountain. Mm-hmm. So we would give them bottled water for free.
Okay.
And then when it was time for us to order lunch, we would just say, can I get a McDouble on the fly? Like as if there was one missing from a bag. And they'd go, and they'd make it exactly the way that you liked it because they knew you. Or they would ask for like the fancy like frappes or whatever. And that wasn't considered free for McDonald's, but we would just do it anyways because Happy cooks, happy life.
We'll have an episode with Liam. We'll talk more fast food stories because there's one. I've always been kind of a little bit of a hustler, but it really started to really shined when I was working at Carl's Jr. I may or may not have stolen a bunch of money and how you were able to do it back in the day. So I will definitely bring that up. Before we leave fast food,
Teasing us with the climb.
like the weirdest, it was genius in how it was done. And it was so easy to find, but nobody found. Like because I talk to Kelly about it all the time. Social compliance, right? So as long as things look like they're supposed to be there, no one ever checks into it. So, like any number of reports, my manager could have seen what we were doing, but never did. Weirdest drive-through experience. Do you have any of those?
Yes, all the time. So when I tell the second story, this one's going to sound like, why would you even tell this one?
Right.
But the weirdest drive-through experience was this guy. He was driving a minivan and he ordered chicken nuggets for his son. And when he got up to the window, I was told by one of my associates that we didn't have barbecue sauce. We're all out. And this dude starts to throw a mother fit. He is like, what the am I supposed to feed my son? What am I supposed to tell my son? By the way, son is in the back seat.
Right.
He's just Google-eyed. It's like, what kind of business is this? You can't tell me there's not one barbecue in this. And he starts just like melting down a little bit. And I'm just like, sorry, sir, there's no barbecue. Well, you need to check again. I'm like, I actually didn't even check the first time. That was somebody else, but I kind of trust them. And this is back in my don't care days. So
yeah,
when I first got hired, I would have been like, of course, let me go check.
I'll make you some real quick.
Yeah, literally. But he was just like the most entitled person. And he was saying he was gonna call corporate and what's my name? Why don't I wear a name tag? And I was like, I don't know. I lost my name tag because they were the kind of had the magnets.
Yeah.
If you rubbed against anything, it would just pop off.
That just happened to me the other night. I took my badge out of my pocket and I felt something drop, but I didn't know what it was. And a day and a half later, I realized my name tag was missing. And I was like, oh, it's under my car 2 days ago.
Yep.
Yeah, it's gone.
But like, yeah, you can carry a box or something and it pulls up onto the thing.
Right.
But I think that was like my moment of like, what am I even doing here? What am I really? And that was like I got to get out of McDonald's. But the craziest drive-through experience was this other lady who just said that I was like mocking her because I didn't understand her. And I was like, sorry, ma'am, what was that? Sorry, what was that? And she's like, you don't understand me. You don't understand. I'm gonna come over there and I'll talk to you. I'm like, okay, it might be easier. I don't know. Maybe it's just the headset. And she was so incensed at me for some reason because she thought I was like, and by the time she came around, I was kind of like smiling a little bit because you know when something's about to go down.
I love that smile. I give that smile to everybody so much.
But she started getting so mad and she was like, I was like, well, you know what? Honestly, ma'am, no thank you. And she's like, excuse me? And she tried to hit me through the drive-thru
in her car.
Aware or just not realizing that she's belted into the car. She's belted into the car.
Door closed, belted.
She can't reach across with her right hand to come. It's never gonna work. What do you like Mr. Fantastic?
You're already positioned like 6 inches high.
Yeah.
And
what's gonna happen here? And by the time she had realized that and unbuckled herself, I had closed and locked the window, and she just against the window, and I was just like, I was dying laughing. Nice. And she pulls up to my manager and she starts cursing her out. And my manager's like, what happened? I couldn't stop laughing. She sent me back to my station to go take orders. And that one was actually a great day. Forget your barbecue sauce guy. Career ending for me.
Right.
Lady tries to fight you through the drive-thru was so funny.
You're like, I'll stay next week because of this.
Literally.
Have you ever been fired from a job?
No. I've quit a job.
Have you always put your 2-week notice in?
No, at Dunkin' Donuts, I literally just quit on spot.
Okay. So
funny because they thought that I was joking. So we got like a new manager, and she's like, I'm here to clean up this town or whatever. You know how they are. They think they can run the store better than you have. And she kind of stepped all over my toes, but I really only had to deal with her for like that 1 to 2 hours where everybody got there. So I didn't really care. But she started like screaming a lot, which kind of irritated me. And then she made like some of the little like cook girls who like, assembled sandwiches cry. And I was like, listen, back off. Back up. You're not hot,
Yeah.
And she's like, excuse me? I'm like, you know what? Honestly, not worth it. And so I walked out in the middle of my shift, and they thought that I just went to go cool off. But later that day, I was like, oh, sorry, I forgot my keys.
Right.
And they're like, you're the only baker that we have. Like, I was working 6 days a week, and 1 day a week, somebody would come in to cover me.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I said I quit earlier. Did she not tell you? And they're like, no, she did. Listen, we'll talk to her. And I was like, this is just to give your key back so you don't like accuse me of being and robbing the place a week from now. But I was just done with it. And at that time, I didn't need to have that job. I was living at home at that time. I had moved back home. So I was like, I got rent money. My mom's not going to kick me out.
Right.
I'm out of here.
Plus, it's not that hard to find another job equal to.
Yeah. I could have worked at a different Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
Because I subbed at so many Dunkin' Donuts. Because they also, apparently baker is like the least popular job at Dunkin' Donuts.
Like you said, middle of the night, can't go to sleep in the morning.
Yep. Middle of the night, can't go to sleep in the morning. And you're expected to do like a lot of work in a little time.
Yeah.
Little pay. So I was like, I'm out.
So yeah. All right, real quick. Let's see. Quit Carl's Jr. I got fired from another Carl's Jr. for falsifying my application.
How did you falsify your application?
The district manager, I went in and said, hey, I used to work at the one down on the other side of town. This one was in the mall. I actually worked inside of a mall. So I said, are you guys hiring? And they're like, yeah. I said, I technically been working there. What do I put down for, have you worked for Carl's Jr. before? He's like, just put no. So I was like, fair enough. Eventually.
What would be the benefit of putting no?
I don't know.
Pray tell, because you'd think experience in the same franchise would be good.
Well, the verbal agreement was you're good, but we don't want anybody to know that you quit the other place.
Okay, no, I get it now. Yeah.
So eventually somebody else came and noticed me and was like, who the hell is this guy? He was a piece of crap at the other place.
Dude, that's bet.
Yeah.
That's bet.
So I got fired from there. I got fired from the bowling alley on 2 times? 2 times. Definitely 2 times. I'm still trying to confirm if there was a 3rd time or not.
So you're saying you got fired and then you came back and then you got fired again?
Yeah.
How did after the first firing, who approached who to get you back in the chair?
I got fired because I was a punk kid. I went to a different bowling alley and I was like, you run this place like shit. I run it better. And just a total douchebag. And I go back to my place and like the next day they're like, what did you do, Ben? I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, the guy that you talked to was the old vice president of the company.
Oh, no.
And I was like, well, I was right. And he's like, we had to let you go. I said, fair enough. For how long? And my first question was, how long? And they're like, 6 months. I said, I'll be back in 6 months. So I came back
in 6 months,
which was hilarious. I think they fired me one other time. I don't remember. And then where else did I work? There was one job that we got hired for, but I just never showed up. I had a buddy who worked, we got jobs at a hometown buffet. And
Hey, that sounds like kind of a sweet job, though.
okay, so did I. So friend goes to work Monday. I was going to start Tuesday. He goes to work Monday. And I guess what you don't realize is he was dishes and garbage, right? So hometown buffet, there's 50 different items. And then he said just the mixture of throwing away 50 different items at one time and just all of the smells and everything going on. He's like, can we do it?
Delicious.
So I was like, well, I'm not going in.
No, yeah, I did that with Domino's. I put in like several applications at once to places,
Yeah.
and they hired me. And then I quickly, before my first day, got hired somewhere else. And I don't know why. I can't remember why. I just didn't ever call them. So they just kept calling me, and they're like, hey, just so you know, this was supposed to be your first day. Maybe you mix up the days. We'd be happy to see you tomorrow. The schedule is this. These are the days that you're going to be working. Please give us a call back, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, this is so awkward. I just didn't call them back. And so they kept calling me. They were like, so this
must have
your
wanted you.
second day. And it was like the manager, she was so nice too. And I was like, it was like the guilt and shame that stopped me from calling them. Because she was just so very nice. And she was so like ready to hire me. And she's like, wow,
You've never gotten a confirmation of any of any sort. I worked at a Peter Piper.
Peter Piper pizza? That might be hell because there's like kids there.
I was 17, so I was dishwasher / toy guy. So obviously I was the coolest person there.
Giving out the prizes would be the best job.
I don't know what happened. I don't know if I got, I don't think I might have got fired from there. I don't remember. This is why I'm doing the nostalgia tour. I got to find people who be like, was I fired from this place?
Was I fired or did I quit?
Do you ever drive by any of your old works and they're not there anymore?
So I worked at one Smart and Final Mesa that's closed down. Smart and Final Gilbert is still there. I've never wanted to stop in there because it's just way awkward.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you always say, "Oh, I'll visit" or whatever, but it's so because like the thing you have in common with those people is that you work at the same place most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had more of a connection with them, then usually it'll carry on.
Right.
Not always. And I absolutely love all the people I worked with.
Right.
Except for my manager. I saw him at the dollar store here by where we live now. Just randomly ran into him and his family. It was so freaking awkward. Because I was like, yeah, still work at Smart and Final? He's like, yep. Going on 20 years now. And I'm like, do you make it back to store manager yet? Because he was store manager and then he got demoted. And I was like, good, because he's a jerk. And he's like, yeah, so how about you? I'm like, yeah, no, my job almost instantly made me manager because they saw what I was worth, unlike Smart and Final. It's so weird, don't you think? And he's like, yeah, maybe. And I'm like, yeah, you really made my life miserable and I don't like seeing you. So, bye. Like, I just left. I was like, why not be honest with somebody? He literally decided he hated me from day one, and then he would just try to make me miserable in every way possible.
I don't understand why, like, as a manager, you hire somebody and then be like, I don't like you.
I was literally about to quit when they moved me to Gilbert, and he wasn't there, and I was like, fine, I'll stay.
I remember hearing something vaguely about that.
Yeah, I was like, I can't work with him anymore. It just can't happen. It won't happen. And then they just were like, hey, you want to move to Gilbert? Yes, absolutely.
So I drive by the Peter Piper and I'm like, oh, it's not there anymore. And it's like, I don't know. I get this, like, obviously I'm on this weird nostalgia thing going on. So like, I like driving by and be like, I used to work there. And like, oh, that place used to be my place and it's not there anymore.
And it's kind of weird because it's like almost like your memories are all in that place, but it's just not there.
Yes.
It's like Schrodinger's cat. It's almost like if you walk in those doors, you're going to see everything in Peter Piper Pizza.
Right.
But instead, you're seeing like an empty, I don't know, leased out space or whatever.
Yeah, and then or on the other side of it is like I have all those memories and that they're all gone. They're like like every once in a while, I don't have a really good example, but I look at that thing and be like, there are some decent times in this space, and they're like, it's all gone, like all gone to history. Like nobody even remembers it was even a Peter Piper. And I was like,
yeah, when people drive past, they don't go, "There's where the old Peter Piper was." They go, "Oh, empty building."
Another one. And it's been like 3 other places since then, so that's interesting. I think that's all I got for jobs right now. Of all your jobs, was there ever one job that you thought, okay, if you were going to be born to be amazing at one job, have you found that job or have you been in that job yet?
I believe that the job I was in. No, I think the job I'm in now, I'm like kind of born to be at because
you get to boss a bunch of boys around.
Well, yeah, I boss a lot of people around, but also my job is not the same thing every day.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like hot mess moments, and that's when I shine. Like I always tell people, until we have our first like calamity in the morning, I can't think.
Right.
If everything's calm, I'm like in a brain fog until like 4 p.m. But as soon as something terrible happens, like, oh my God, a car is missing. Oh my God, this is happening.
While everybody's panicking, you're like, I got this.
I'm like, I got this.
This is what I was born for.
That's when I focus.
Yeah.
I always focus when there's too many things to do. If there's not enough things to do, I'm just like, if I had one file to move from my office to a different office and that's all I had all day, it would never get moved. It would never, like, you could give me 8 hours to do it and I'd just be like, well, I could do it at any time during these 8 hours. But if you give me 700 things to do in one day, I will get them all done.
Yeah. For the longest time, I thought the bowling alley was that. And I think it might just be because, like, there was so much fun. I was 17 to 22 is like those 5 years. Just my entire life, that was the center of everything. Like literally, because I lived with a bunch of people there, so I was there 16 hours a day. Mom lived right across the wall, so I'd go over there and see her, sleep on her floor when I went to work that I'm in at now, but I was working 2 jobs. But yeah, for whatever reason, like those handful of years, I was like, oh my God, like this is the most fun I've ever had. And then I think a lot of it is just because of the lack of responsibility. Whereas like now it's like, all right, I'm good at the other jobs and I like the other jobs, but like I have to do those jobs. Whereas like the bowling alley was, I don't really have to be here. Fire me twice.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying about having the shitty jobs first. Is you want that job where you're like, this isn't my end goal is to like, be a cashier or, flip burgers or whatever it is. But I'm doing it for now. And, if I F it up, who cares? And that's another thing I enjoy about my job currently is that there's just a lot of like good times to be had. It's a less formal business than I usually am in. Because, when you're in like fast food or grocery or whatever it is, you're kind of like in front of customers all the time. And even when you're not in front of customers, it's like being hostage. So, like, situation where it's like you say some kind of bawdy joke and people look red before they laugh. And you're like, calm down. We're in the back room. If there's a customer here, they're very, very lost.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what Liam's first job will be.
Professional wrestler.
Maybe. We'll see. He still has huge hopes of getting a job soon. As soon as he can, he says he wants to do those things. So we'll find out. He's got a year and a half before.
I'm sure I would have loved that too when I was a kid. we didn't have a car, obviously, so
I didn't drive until I was 27.
dude, I was like showing my like ID to people because they're showing our embarrassing photos, and they're like, "Wait a second, when were you born?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I didn't get my driver's license until in my 20s. It wasn't important to me."
Who needed it? Like, yeah, because the ball, I was the center of my universe, and I walked or bussed everywhere. I made sure that wherever I was staying, I was 15 minutes from any major bus line, and or I can walk within a half hour. I lived my life that way for a while.
And it was kind of very typical, I feel like, back home in New Jersey, because there's public transit everywhere, that people tended to not get their driver's license until they were older. Because you could take the bus.
Yeah.
We took the bus all the time from our town in New Jersey to New York.
Okay.
It was no big deal. It was no big deal to like move to go to different states. Dad would take his like a bus in like the Amtrak to the city. And it was not a big deal. It was how you got around places, and he didn't take his car. It didn't make, and when he got into New York, he's in New York in the city with no car.
Right.
But that's how you get around. You get around subway, you get around buses, cabs, whatever it is, walking.
The good old days. All right. We're already going long, but real quick, because we're getting to know you. We know that you like Lord of the Rings. When was the first time you read Lord of the Rings, and who introduced you to it?
Okay, so there was like some reading program in elementary school that was like, you have to get tested into a reading level, right?
Yep.
So you take a stupid test and they test you into a reading level. And here's the thing. Other classes, they would do it like this. You can read up to your level.
Right.
So you can read, A Goodnight Moon if you want, or you can, read whatever it is. So I'm in 5th grade, and I had the misfortune of testing into high school reading. How many high school books do you think was in a 5th grade classroom?
Probably not many.
There was one. It was like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which I did read.
Or Moby Dick.
Yeah, which I did read. But that was it. But my teacher was like, I want you guys to push yourselves. I don't want you ever to read below your level. And when it was like 5th graders who read at a 4th grade level,
right,
that was fine. But for me, I was like, there's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and there's no other books at my level. So you'd send me up to the big library, like the school library, and they were like, Romeo and Juliet, and I was like, gag.
Do I look like my sister?
But I'm like in 5th grade. I don't want to hear about star-crossed lovers. And like, oh, well, we have Lord of the Rings.
Do you remember who that person was?
Yeah, librarian.
What was her name?
I don't know.
Like your dedication to the book would be like, I write because I read this book because of you, Mrs. Nesbit.
But
who's probably obviously dead by now.
Which, by the way, I had to read Romeo and Juliet too, because newsflash, I had to read more than one book, and we were like, well, I couldn't read below my level, so I had to read the 2 books they had, and I absolutely fell in love with Lord of the Rings, and so I obviously read the 3 books separately, and kind of tried to milk that out. I didn't want to read Romeo and Juliet; it sounded boring, and I fell in love with it. I never read The Hobbit until later.
Right.
But up until starting then in 5th grade, I've read Lord of the Rings at least once a year, every single year. And back in, like, when I was in school and stuff like that, I would read it multiple times a year because I just loved it. And I still love it.
That's awesome.
I mean, yeah, it's...
What is it about it that you just, like, so much, like... Because that's a decent-sized book. Now, when you read Lord of the Rings, is it just the first book or all 3 books?
Well, okay, so they were written as one book and then broken up into 3 books. So you can't just read the first book.
Well, you're like, I love a good cliffhanger.
You just read the first Harry Potter for your whole life and you never read any of the others. But, like,
How many pages? That's like 1,000 some pages.
Yeah, but it's not that bad. Especially when you've read it multiple times before, I feel like you read faster.
Okay.
And I don't know, it's just great writing. There's such deep lore in Tolkien's world. And there's a lot of other side books other than The Hobbit. Won't bore you with everything with Silmarillion and everything like that, but
Lord of the Ring page count. 1,200 pages.
that's not even that bad. You think about 1,200 pages and you think about how long does it take you to read a page?
Oh, okay. Well, normal people.
Not you. But yeah, and I do love the movies too.
Did they do them any justice?
I think they did the justice that they could, because you can't make an accurate rendition of Lord of the Rings. It would be like 17,000 hours, and everybody would lose interest. So I think Peter Jackson did a good job. A lot of people don't think that, and they hate it, but I really liked it.
It's one of those things where, like, Hollywood was never going to be able to.
Yeah, those movies came out while I was reading Lord of the Rings, by the way.
Okay. Oh, nice.
I was like reading The Fellowship of the Ring, and then the movie came out. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And it like backwards informed me on how I saw the characters, because I saw the characters completely different than I saw the movie, and I was like, wait.
When you read it now, do you see the movie characters in your head?
I think I've gone back to my originals because it's very different in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And like Elijah Wood was like 18 or something when he filmed that, and Frodo's supposed to be like 50. So it's a little bit different.
Okay.
Like they're gonna look different, and the characters are described differently. But yeah, the movies are great too. They're a great watch, and I think if somebody wants to love Lord of the Rings but doesn't want to read 1,200 pages, watch it. It's great.
Yeah, I always hate book people who don't like adaptations of books, because I'm like I was never going to read Lord of the Rings. I'm glad that they made a movie, so that way at least I am familiar with it now and I've enjoyed them.
So, such thing as like really stinky adaptations, though.
Oh, 100%. I've seen some. Yeah.
And then that's like the image that people have in their mind of that like book, because they've never read the book.
Right.
They're not going to read the book after seeing a shitty movie.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, and there's so many things. Because Kelly and Josh are not super into Lord of the Rings, but they like to send me memes.
Yeah.
To make me mad. Like, why don't they just take the Eagles? Don't start it. We don't have time. But there's so many things where I'm like, oh, didn't you know that this? And they're like, no, in the movie it made it seem like this. I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize it, because I know what it's supposed to be. And they're like, oh, it made it sound like Gandalf came back after he found out about the ring, like, the next day. I'm like, oh, no, there was like 17 years between those times. But when he says, keep it secret, keep it safe, and then he leaves, and then he reads all those tomes, like Gondor, and then he comes back. I'm like, yeah, that was like 17 years difference. So
that's awesome. It's cool that you found a book like that.
And you can watch endless content on YouTube.
Oh, 100%.
And they're like the Tuscan of YouTube.
Yes.
They're so passionate, they're so knowledgeable, and they're not talking to you about the movie.
Well, I remember when we were in the panel, you almost lost your shit a couple of times.
Yeah, no. I don't even remember what they were saying, but they started talking about Lord of the Rings, and I was like, I'm about to start swinging, because...
Like, I might just email them right now and be like, can we just do another late night panel of, like, the truth behind Lord of the Rings, and just have everybody come in with all that
fake facts, not just getting madder and madder. Well, they were like, oh no, that's what they said. They were like, oh yeah, Sauron really has no reason behind him. We don't know his motives. And I was like, bro.
Page 853, it clearly says right there.
Well, here's the thing. You don't really know Sauron's motives as much if you're just reading Lord of the Rings. You'd have to read. And then you're like, oh my god, I'm just turning into those people. It's like, well, if you read the Silmarillion, bro, you would know.
Who wrote Lord of the Rings? Tolkien?
Yes.
Did he write anything else?
Yes. All those other side all of it. A lot
Are
of
they
stuff.
all Lord of the Rings universe?
No.
Okay.
So he was a professor too, and he wrote a lot of stuff on language. He wrote a lot of stuff on folklore. But as far as fiction goes, most of it is in the vein of Lord of the Rings. There is some other writings, some like sub writing.
Yeah.
But you could see like veins of Lord of the Rings in there.
Would it be? Does it predate Lord of the Rings?
Yeah. But you could see stuff that he wrote earlier, and you're like, I could see where it's coming. It's coming. And he wrote like all the languages first.
Yeah.
Before he wrote the book.
Yeah.
He was totally geeking out on the Elvish language. Yeah. He wrote language for the Rohirrim. Everybody has their own language. And that was his basis of everything. Right. And then he writes a story about it, I guess.
He's like, I'm going to come up with languages, and now I'm going to go ahead and put them into a story.
Exactly. That's exactly how it went.
There was a movie semi-recently that had what the hell is his name? I don't remember his name. It was called Token. Did you watch that movie?
Did not watch that movie.
He played Beast in X-Men. He was in Juror number 2. He was about a boy.
Beast in X-Men in the original X-Men? Like the 2000s X-Men?
No, the newer ones.
The newer ones, okay.
But it was early days of Tolkien, and I remember I saw a couple of scenes of
South Africa and everything,
and he in books and stuff. He's like, I'm right, and he just writing language, and people didn't understand him. They're like, what are you doing and why? And he's like, hang on, I got this.
Well, and he became a professor, and he was in a writing group with C.S. Lewis and stuff like that. He found his people and he found his group, and before Ben says something about me writing, but
dropped it. No more.
Yeah, I mean, he was really quickly into language. And I think it started out with just language, but then it started out with, how it's formed and forming your own language, which was super cool.
That's cool. It goes like deep. Like, I can appreciate an artist who goes like that deep into something.
Well, it was almost like the book was a side hustle because he was so into writing languages.
He's like, I can't sell the idea of these languages by themselves.
But if I write a book around it, and there's people who even study Elvish, and obviously there's 2 kinds of Elvish, but
are they like the official, like, because like you have other science fictions, like, is he considered like his language is like the Elvish language?
No, not at all. I think everybody who goes into writing their own fantasy will go into their own writing systems. Mm-hmm. And there's even some stuff like, if you look at the Dwarvish language, obviously the figures there are like Norse, inspired at least, if not just like full stolen from it. I think he was a little more creative with his Elvish writing language and everything like that, but there is a lot of stuff if you go into other writers' works where you see hints of Tolkien.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm like always zeroing in on it. But, when things come before you, you can take inspiration from them. I don't think it's stealing. I don't think it's bad or anything like that, but it's fun to see.
Well, it's nice too, because he did all that work to be like, the idea of starting your own language is like, if I can find the structure from somebody else and kind of piggyback off of that, then like, so be it. By all means, like, I don't want to do all the rest of that other work. But it's cool that he's been able to inspire others to kind of, like you said, find inspiration in his work. Because I didn't even know about Lord of the Rings before the movies. I knew ish of The Hobbit because it was part of like the required like summer reading. which I never did.
Say, literally written in like the 1950s, bro. It's been here. It's been around.
Never read it.
It's been around. I mean, I've often heard people say, "Oh, I read The Hobbit, but Lord of the Rings was too boring."
Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, very much so. The Fellowship of the Ring is a very slow-paced book, and you might find yourself bored if you're not into that kind of thing.
I think Kevin Smith gave his opinion of how slow that was in Clerks 2.
You get a lot of descriptions and a lot of, then they went there and here's the whole history of this road that they're walking down, this area that they're in. The elves used to call it this, and that's what happened there, and all this history. And by the way, none of that has anything to do with story. But it's cool because it's world building and it makes you feel like you're in a lived in world.
Yeah. I love the idea of world building. Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry. Because I fell down this rabbit hole a little while ago where I never watched the original series. I love Next Generation Star Trek. I like what they're doing with some of the movies. But Paramount, for whatever reason, they're just like, let's just keep making Star Trek stuff. They have.
Well, you know why, right?
Heck yeah.
Cha-ching.
And it's because for a while it was just those two universes, original series and Next Generation. And then obviously Deep Space Nine and Voyager, but they're all part of that same universe. And then they have Discovery, which is super weird. I love somebody somewhere, I love the idea that they have a chalkboard, right? And they have all the timelines. And Discovery is like, all right, here's what we're going to do. A spoiler alert. It's like episode 2. But they're hanging out in between like original series and Next Generation. But then they're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to create this technology in which we're going to go ahead and just zoom into like 3,000 years into the future. And I was like,
that's a great way to like completely eliminate the timeline though. Because imagine us 3,000 years ago.
Right.
Are we affected by stuff that happened 3,000 years ago? Obviously. But can you say specifically what happened 3,000 years ago that's affecting us right now? No.
So I love the idea that they created this whole other one in a single episode. They were like, we're just going to expand the universe thousands of years. And then there's obviously the plot holes. And then they're like, we swear these 3 guys to secrecy that this never happened. I'm like, bravo, please, thank you. But they also have the cartoon Lower Deck, which is super interesting. It takes, so you have the starship and everything, right? And we always see everybody on the bridge. But below deck is all like the workers. And it's just, there's something charming that they did with it. And I just love the idea of like all of that world building. It just seems like, right? And I'm like, thank you guys for doing it. Because I like to tell stories. And I'm like, I can't create an entire world.
Yeah, that sounds like a headache in the making, but people are really clever with it.
Right. How long did it take Tolkien to write Lord of the Rings? Like, was this like a passion project over decades?
I don't think it was over decades because it didn't come out that much far after The Hobbit. It was kind of rejected by the publishers immediately because The Hobbit was like a children's book.
Right.
And Lord of the Rings is more of like a more adult kind of book. But he did write the Silmarillion over decades. He changed his mind constantly. So people's backgrounds, like Galadriel and stuff like that, they change over time, but Lord of the Rings stays the same. Right. So her motivations for what she does are changing constantly, but she still did the same things, obviously, because that has to stay in place because it was already published. But he definitely tweaked and changed his mind because we have letters. There's books of like just his letters to fans about their questions, like what's going on with this, what happened, are there orc women, weird questions.
This nerd boy is just like,
constant.
tell me what. Yeah.
And he loved it. He loved
Yeah.
it. He wrote back to everybody.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so they're all numbered. The letters are all numbered. So you say letter number 759 says this about, so you can say, this is what Tolkien has to say about it
Awesome.
if you have a question. But then he will go back and forth sometimes and he'll say, I don't really know how that works. Let me think about it, I guess.
Oh, that is so cool. It's awesome that he created a fan base that was so big on like characters' motivations or what they were.
Feral after the motivation, after the facts, what happened with this, who was the mouth of Sauron really, like they really wanted to know.
Oh, that's awesome.
And to have the creator available that you can just write him a letter and he'll write back. Like if I wrote like George R.R. Martin today, I'm not going to get a letter back from him probably saying, oh, this is what this or that is about. I don't know anything about Game of Thrones, but
no interest in Game of Thrones?
I kind of fell off TV because I lost like all of my free time. So I get home and I cook dinner and we put the baby to bed and I have to go to bed and get up. So because I work like 9 to 7, 9 to 8 sometimes. So I don't have like a lot of time to watch TV. And then when I do have free time on like the weekends, I like to game.
But you never picked up the book?
No, because I have even less time for reading now. And if I have to read something, I have to read Lord of the Rings because I got to do it once a year.
Right? Like, sorry, guys. I'm already committed.
So comfortable, too, to just pick it up and just start reading it. Like, every single word is so cemented in your mind that it feels like you almost wrote it.
Do Lord of the Rings people dislike the dragon people?
Song of Ice and Fire.
Lord of the Rings and... what was it?
Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Are there separation between the nerds?
No. Well, here's the funny thing, though, is that George R.R. Martin is often critical of some stuff with Tolkien, but you can tell it's all in good fun, and he loves Tolkien, and he takes, what you can get from the godfather of fantasy, basically. But he'll say, like, oh, what was Aragorn's tax policy or whatever? Was he really a good leader and all that stuff? And it's kind of interesting because Tolkien obviously can't defend himself now, but I can imagine him writing that to Tolkien and saying, did he kill all the baby orcs when the war was done? Right. What happened to the little baby orcs who were at home? Did he kill them all?
I like the idea that two of like the titans of that kind of fantasy. Are they like medieval fantasy? How would you classify? Because they're a fantasy, yes?
Yes, they're fantasy. I would say probably just like classic fantasy. Because there's so many subgenres of fantasy now. And
right, it's like steampunk fantasy and
sci fantasy.
Right. I like the idea that the two of them were kind of like, did they know each other, hang out? Tolkien and R. Martin?
I don't believe so.
All right.
Never heard anything about it. Christopher Lee met Tolkien.
Okay.
He was the only person in the cast of Lord of the Rings who met Tolkien. And he has like so many interesting stories. Like there's some point where, I guess, spoilers for Lord of the Rings if anyone hasn't watched it. Saruman, who Christopher Lee plays, gets stabbed in the back and it makes a sound. And he goes, that's not the sound that stabbing somebody in the back was. Because he was like a spy during the war and he had an amazing and, actually crazy life before becoming an actor. And singer also. Death metal, by the way.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
But he did meet Tolkien when he was alive, so he was the only one.
That's awesome.
And I think Tolkien would have hated the movies, by the way. He would have hated them. He would have hated them so much. He didn't want his work to be changed in any way.
Yes. Neil Gaiman had a very similar, where he notoriously rejected so many different adaptations of like Sandman and all these other things.
And it's fair because you feel like you made something.
Right.
And now they're trying to make... It'd be like if somebody came up with like a second Ben
Yeah.
at work, and they're like, "This is actually the new Ben, and we're gonna have him mornings." And you'd be like, "But he's not me. He's like a different person. He may look a little bit like me, but he's not me."
Right.
And they'd be like, "No, it's the same Ben."
Well, and it's interesting too. In as an author, you look at Hollywood and you're like, you're just going to bastardize the like you only want it for the IP. You only want it for the name.
Correct.
Like you don't want it for like the essence of what my book is.
So unless you know like the director of the movie, or I don't know, it's called director of a TV show,
Filler.
creator of a TV show, unless you know them personally and what their vision is with your work, you don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, for years they were trying to get a Sandman show on. And then even Coraline, I think Neil was like elbow deep in all those things. And I'm like,
It's a great movie, though.
It was.
It's so great. Sophie loves it, obviously.
Yeah, it's always interesting because like,
but it's different than the book. It is different.
But I think his approval of changed.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like we've said, other adaptations of things that were like, that is almost nothing like the book. Like you just took the title.
You just took the title and ran with it.
Right? You're like, I don't even know what, like it barely has any resemblance to it.
The Cat in the Hat movie.
Yeah. Right? And it's like, I don't understand, like, why. I think we saw a lot of it in the original X-Men, the first one that came out in 99, 2000. People were like, we want an X-Men movie.
Clearly, yeah.
And they put them all in the black spandex and the black suits, and people were like, what are you doing? Like,
where's the colorful suit?
Yes.
Hugh Jackman talked about wearing the yellow suit for the first time.
Yeah.
In Deadpool versus Wolverine. He's like, yeah, it felt like a different experience,
Yes.
like a different Wolverine.
It's just weird where, I guess it's the two different worlds where, as a filmmaker, you're like, this is what I know what people want. And it's like, if you're going to, no, you want my IP because you like the history and the story that we created. Why are you going to change?
Well, this is why. So let's take something like maybe Star Trek. Here's the people who like Star Trek. That's great. I love that for them.
Right.
You're trying to make a movie that's going to make $1 million,
Right.
millions and millions of dollars, rather. You're going to need to rope in these people.
Right.
You're going to need to rope in a huge crowd of people who have never heard of Star Trek or heard of it, and they're not really sure about it. And so you're going to have to create visuals that'll be like, oh, that's something I would watch. Because if they see something and they go, I'm not watching that crap, you're losing all the money you put into there. Same thing with X-Men. I'm not going to watch just silly guys in spandex, yellow spandex running around. Like, but you see it in like a more military aspect, and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool, actually. They're like part of a team, like a SEAL team. You trick your conservative dad into watching X-Men, basically.
I guess the irony is like everybody's fallen off of the superhero thing now. Like I think it's oversaturated.
They've done it to death, and they haven't really brought in anything that is so new that it really revives it. There's great stuff out there. There's like Loki and stuff like that, but
it's so good.
Does it make you want to have more superhero stuff? No. Maybe more Loki, but not more superhero stuff.
So we will see. We got a lot of big things coming out of both sides, Marvel and DC. So hopefully we see a resurgence of them. Because I enjoyed them. They were all good times.
I fell off at some point.
Before or after Endgame?
After Endgame.
I think everybody ended after Endgame.
No, I went a little bit past there, and then before the Doctor Strange multiverse of madness or whatever.
WandaVision?
Right then is when I watched a little bit of WandaVision, but I fell off TV, so.
It's one of those things where it's like, they had a good thing, and they're like, let's just let's make more of it. Like, no.
You don't have to beat it to death.
Right.
This thing is, they'll find something that's good, and as soon as they find it, they're like, oh, they're going to want another hit. No, I want something different.
Was it 25 movies to get to Endgame over 12 years? That's perfect. Give me one a year, Give me one hero movie every year building up to the end game. Endgame, I don't think people like it. Uh, it is brilliant. Somewhere at some point, people are going to look back at what Kevin Feige did with Infinity Gauntlet and Endgame and really break it down and realize how much of a genius this guy was. He took 30 different superheroes and villains and threw them all in the same movie, and everybody got enough time. The story
didn't seem shoehorned in, but
like
no, it was great. But then where do you even go from there?
I think they should have just stopped.
They're like, oh, no more Captain America. Well, let's make Falcon Captain America, because he can't just be his own superhero that does things. We have to have a Captain America. We have to have one. We can't just have no Captain America. It's like, yeah, okay, but
and then
do something different.
Is it politics then to be like, because the irony also of that is 10, 12 years ago, comic books were like, we need to make all of the heroes that we know and make them diverse. So like Iron Man, boom, black chick. And we're like, Hulk, boom, fucking African, like an Asian guy. And they're like, they just kept trying to change we haven't seen any new characters. It's always same character name, but different diversity. Right. It's like, why do we have to do that? Like, why couldn't we just like put some of those other characters away and like make somebody else with a different name? And it's like,
yeah, but then you risk having stuff always be based on, like, white superheroes always have things based on their character, right? So, like, Captain America was a war hero, Iron Man was a billionaire, and then Shang-Chi is from China.
Right.
And he is Chinese. And by the way, did you know that he follows the folklore because it's Chinese? He's our one Chinese guy. Like, I'm not saying that that character is bad or that the stories that he's in are bad, but it feels like it becomes very centered on everything. Like, oh, you know, you got Black Panther. Right. It's about Africa. And that's awesome. And I think that's cool. But why do we have, like, you know, Falcon? He's also a war hero, or like,
you dilute Falcon by trying to make him somebody else a little bit. And you're like, if you want Falcon to be the new Captain America,
well, to be the new leader of the team. Yeah. Make him the leader. Don't make him Captain America.
Right.
Oh, because it's weird having like a different Captain America.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff is interesting, and I like Miles Morales Spider-Man.
Right.
I absolutely love Miles Morales Spider-Man, actually, but
that movie was fantastic. The Into the Spider-Verse. Holy crap, that movie's so good.
Yeah, and he's a great character, and I never saw it as a racing Spider-Man.
Right. Because they introduced him appropriately. They weren't just like shoehorning him in and be like, Peter Parker's dead, you're going to be the new Spider-Man. They're like, no, there's a story of how he became.
But Peter Parker was dead. That was like the whole thing in Into Spider-Verse, is that he like died.
Right.
But
he was also from a different universe.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't have minded if he took up the mantle either way. Like, Spider-Man is retiring. Well, now a new Spider-Man.
Okay, you guys, I guess Spider-Man's also a bad example comparing it to Falcon and Captain America, because Stan Lee, loved Spider-Man. Because
he loves New York.
He loves New York, but he loved the idea that anybody could be Spider-Man. And I think that's the beauty of Miles Morales, is like, Peter Parker's gone, anybody can do it. Whereas opposed to,
as long as he's bit by a radioactive spider in some way.
But like like you said, Captain America, war hero, like only a war hero could be that person, or Iron Man could only be a rich guy. But anybody in New York, in theory, could be
Spider-Man.
So good. All right. Long episode, but I appreciate you letting us know you a little bit more. I think people are going to like it.
I hope so.
We'll do more of them. I'll think of some other little topics. But I thought first job would have been interesting to be like, where does she come from? Fast food, boom, check, you got it.
Yep, I came from McDonald's fryer.
Right. And then I would, because I will find out more, but I do know that of the handful of passions that you have, Lord of the Rings is one of them. So we'll find out what some
Probably the biggest one. Yeah.
Sophie, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Sorry, kid.
So we'll find a couple of other ones that we're super passionate about. But thank you for hanging out, and we'll have you on a little bit more. We'll check on Liam in the next week or two, so we'll see. But wanted you to be on as early as we could in the hundreds, so
As early as we could.
102. You guys have a good night.
Whimsy.
I'll say it loud just in case.
Say whimsy really loud.
Yeah, because sometimes it doesn't read it.
Whimsy. I'm always too